Pheromoon by Leonard. It is not an uncommon phenomenon to suffer insomnia during a full moon. I was born under a full moon, and I'm sure my parents didn't get much sleep that night. But my issue with the moon might be a unique one. I don't just lose sleep when it's a full moon. I struggle falling asleep on nights before and after, when it rises to and shrinks from power. It always felt as though it was much more than just there being extra light creeping into my room. I know it was more than that because I put my black coats over the windows and still could not fall asleep. Not even 2 Tylenol PMs could sedate me into sleep. I eventually learned to just stay awake and wait for the nights where the moon was less powerful. I Googled and Googled, searched Reddit, a haven from the AI answers of Google. I was discouraged at how it seemed scientists refused to touch upon the subject out of fear of dipping into pseudoscience. But I do not fear losing all my credibility like a scientist does, so I will share what I have found. My father always had his own theories about the moon, that it was hollow, and a kind of space station. He knew exactly how many miles away it was, and this was juxtaposed with his hollow moon theories. I did not believe the moon was hollow, though. That celestial body seemed so full, especially when it was full in its complete circle self. I sought out psychics and Wiccan women who gave me astrological explanations, one even pointed out that I was born under a full moon and that might be a possible explanation for my lunar insomnia. For a while, I accepted their explanations, but it just didn't settle on me. I felt restless, and instinctively I did not accept it, as I had tried willing myself to accept it at first. So I mined the internet to no avail. I reached out to people who suffered similar insomnias, finding that some people even had difficulty sleeping when the moon was absent. It was at one of my dead ends where I went to the beach and considered the moon's tidal powers being an explanation for my lunar insomnia, as perhaps it pushed and pulled my blood the way it did the sea. I stood on the cliff above the beach and considered this while the moon needed the Atlantic like dough, and it seemed such a colossal indigo void would not respond to anything but the moon. I heard it crash and sweep away like blood in my ears. I saw the big white moon far beyond the sea, and I looked up and wondered what it needed my sleep for. What purpose did my stolen sleep serve in its master plan? It was so luminous that night that I actually squinted while looking up at it, as it tried blinding me from seeing the real reason. I made it a habit to walk the beach on nights when the moon was full, nearly full, and on nights after a full moon. One time, I even went 72 hours without sleep and crashed. It took me one delirious week to recover. I dreaded the end and start of every month, for that was roughly when the moon peaked. I mused on whether it had a soapy spearmint smell or a stale vanilla Tic Tac smell. I'd come to see it in many different outfits, sometimes wearing a scratchy necklace of a tree branch, sometimes wearing a poofy gown of clouds, with a cloud beneath it like a bodice, but it was usually naked. But it wasn't on the beach, but on an open hiking trail that I realized why I suffered my lunar insomnia. The dirt road was a wide one, with walls of tall pine trees on either side, their verdant colors something inky in the night. Their woods were very much awake despite their blackness, and I knew the moon had stolen their sleep as well. I had a clear view up ahead of this great giant moon, so luminous that it made the sky around it glow, a pearl stuck in the darkest pond. It pushed the stars away, pushed my sleep away, and did nothing but shine. It was then and there that I realized why I could never sleep during the full moon. The color of love was never pink or red. The brown and red of chocolate-covered strawberries were but the subjects of the supreme color of love. The pastel Easter colors of candy hearts were but its dusty tasting minions, sweet and brief jousting on their taste buds, but the moon lasted longer than any taste. I couldn't believe I had never made the connection before. The moon was the color of love. The color of love was white. It was the color of white picket fences nobody could afford anymore. It was the color of a woman's wedding dress. And when a bride enters the church, every guest is but a star who has to turn their face to her. She is the moon, making her way down the aisle as the moon passes through the sky. And I had no aisle to wait or walk at when I realized this. I only had this trail from the woods. The moon is the color of snow during snowball fights, and happy couples have miniature model moons disbanding on their hats and shoulders. Little moons freeze their fingers through their gloves. Doves and swans have the moon inside their feathers. pearls on a woman's neck, 100 mini-moons on a woman's neck. The toothpaste foam, which forms around a couple's mouths as they brush their teeth together, is a frothy white similar to the vapor of the moon. And then I realized this when I reached the end of the hiking trail, which ended at a scenic view above a valley. The moon had never filled my room the way it filled this corner of the world. And what a place to realize this. There was moonlight inside me. As long as it was there, how could I ever sleep? So overcome with this revelation, I stumbled down and sat and laid on my back, discarded by the human race with moonlight beating on my face. Did the moonlight outside and moonlight inside me recognize one another? I batted my eyes. I was surged with whatever cell, a godforsaken hormone that is the opposite of melatonin. All these rituals, which involved the color white, I had never participated in any of them. My relationships had always been shadowy and moonless. I had to take another deep breath which struggled in my throat. God, how bright and white and glowing was the moon this night. Pine trees around me like an astonished team of doctors, the patient having an epiphany instead of them. You see, I was afraid before about the idea of such intense vulnerability, and now I realized that I had to find someone who I could trust. Someone who loved me enough, someone I loved. Then would the moon leave me be, and I'd be able to sleep inside her arms, no matter how fierce and bright and full the moon. And then I'd be without moonlight in me. Someone to distill the moonlight from me. Who? Where? Why would anyone love me enough to do that? And so I gasped and shook my head while trying to avoid the great big moon. And so I spent all night there until dawn. The color of a wheat field came, and I was met by the most exhausting sense of relief as I finally let myself imagine the idea of someone actually loving me enough to do that. The sun warmed my face, but it was too late. I had learned the truth, and I was able to dream about true love again.